So welcome guys. In this lesson we want to talk about the movement of substances. So from the previous lesson we talked about the cellular structure and organization. Saka apa patada kutarisa at the movement of substances. And when we looked at the cellular structure, we talked about something called a cell wall. We looked at a cell membrane. So when we looked at this cell membrane, we said the cell membrane, it allows certain substance to get into the cell and other substances to go outside the cell. So which means that this is movement of substances. So since it is movement of substances, in this lesson we want to focus more on that movement. And tizive kuti isusu kana pachiti movement of substances tikumbonyasorevei, and what are the key things that we are supposed kuti tibate. So let's go to our notes. Pekutanga apapo tanze diffusion in living organisms. Are we together? Saka, which means that the first thing that we are going to look at is diffusion. And diffusion is the movement of molecules from a region of its higher concentration to a region of its lower concentration. So we are saying that there is movement of molecules. So these molecules are going to be moving, but are move from a region in a higher concentration to a region ya ane lower concentration. Yatiri kuti isusu concentration yedu kuti isusu zvinhu zvakawanda sei pane certain space. And let's say for example muclass mune vana 20 nemuclass inenge of the same size again mobva maita vana 100. Saka tinenge totichi muclass mune vana 20 mune less concentration, then muclass mune vana 100 mune high concentration, because we are clinging that to what? To the space inenge yakafanana. So the next point here, do your vans, your molecules move down the concentration gradient. So these molecules atambotaura aya kuti they are what? They are moving, or movement, they are moving down a concentration gradient. And as a result, it will be as a result of their what? Random movement, because molecules are always constantly moving. And izvozvo zvinowanzo explainwa inonzi Brownian motion yatichata look at kumberi. So the molecules edu, they move down the concentration gradient. So yatiri kuti concentration gradient yedu tikuti chi? Tikuti isusu we have this gradient, and tikuti kuno kuri concentrated so round, then toti kuno kwa less concentrated. Are we together? Saka the movement yema particles edu from a region ya are highly concentrated to lowly concentrated ndizvo zvenyu ndo yatiri kuti it's diffusion, and that is down a gradient. Gradient yedu iri kuenda what? Down. Are we together? So an example inokwanisa kuti tione kuti what's happening is the movement of molecules across a cell membrane. Because when you're talking about living organisms and we want to talk about their movement, there is always this membrane which is outside, and each and every cell. And that membrane rinotogovernor zvinhu zvinoita sei zvinomova. So we would want to know kuti if it is moving kana zvinhu zvichimove through a membrane, what is currently taking place. And so we have my molecules edu. If we look at our diagram, we have our cell, and then taita cell redu we have this here and sekoi pava paburitswa inonzi a bilayer, lipid bilayer, which is the cell membrane. So this cell membrane it's a bilayer because we have this layer and this layer. So these two layers will form a bilayer. Pakati apa pane zvinenge zviripo handiti? So now riri bilayer kudai so, kumusoro ukuku ndokwatiri kuti kune extracellular fluid. Yatoti extracellular fluid, we are saying that it is what? Outside the cell. And then kuzasi ukuku kune cytoplasm. Cytoplasm yedu ndio yatiri kuti ndo it's inside the cell. And so tawana outside ne inside, chichaitika ndechekuti we have these particles edu tweblue ututu. Saka ukatarisa tuma particles tweblue ututu kuzasi ku inside cell tushoma, then kumusoro koku zvakawanda, which means kumusoro these particles have a what? A high concentration. And that's why tanzi we have a high concentration of what? These particles kumusoro. Then kuzasi we have a low concentration. Saka tine low concentration ne high concentration, we are going to have a net movement. And that net movement, we are going to say that these particles, they would move from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration. So when they move from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration, ndoya tetchiti is what? It's diffusion. And this diffusion is across a what? A membrane. So let's look at the other notes. So for living cells, the principle of movement down a concentration gradient is the same, but the cell is surrounded by a cell membrane. Are we together? So trikunzi isusu taura diffusion in terms of pasina membrane. The way inongo move some molecules from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration is just the same. But now chava kusiyana apa ndechekuti isusu tava ne a cell membrane. Saka this cell membrane redu, it restricts free movement. Are we together? It restricts what? Free movement of molecules. Saka nara restricta free movement of molecules, harichaitoti ma molecules angopinda nekubuda zvaanodira paanodira tetese. Saka that kurestricta koko kune a term ratinoshandisa handitika, and this term is what we say it is partially permeable. So let's go to the second note. The cell membrane is partially permeable membrane. This means it allows some molecules to cross easily, but others with difficulty or not at all. So in other words, richa takuti manguma molecules apinde, manguma molecules atadze kuti say kupinda. Are we together? Then the simplest sort of selection is based on the size. Saka na tichibesa ne size tukureva kuti isusu, let's say kuti for example tine kaburi kedu, tine membrane yedu, and membrane yedu ine buri ndiro. Saka we are saying tine molecule rakadai, nika molecule kakadai say kakadai. So you find out that this molecule rakadai so rikada famba through this ndiro rono dumira haripfuri handiti. Then a molecule akaka kakada kupfura apa pakanongera sei kanongopfura kachitonosvika kuno kandi. So which therefore means to say kuti this bigger molecule iri has been restricted to move across ndiro. Why? Because of its size. So in other words, there is what? Partial permeability. Are we together? Then we move on with our notes to the next point. Diffusion helps living organisms to, number one, it helps to maintain, to obtain many of their requirements. We are saying my organisms, animal requirements are now kuti that organism ikwanise kusurvive. And it, for example, plant redu rinoda minerals or roda anzi machi roda water nditi. Saka kuti richida water iyoyo, kuti water iyoyo ipinde uyu munonzi muchi plant, ichatoshandisa a process of what? Diffusion. Are we together? Saka that nature ye process iyo is a diffusion process, yobva yatopinda mukati. Then number 2, diffusion helps organisms to get rid of many of their waste products. Let's say for example, mwana ndirerere ari mudumbu mamai, the mother is pregnant, then mwana anoti akapiwa machikafu, food and stuff, then mwana achagadzirawo waste products. Then those waste products, they need to be transported outside the baby. Saka the baby, you don't find the fetus chichita defecation or producing facial material inside. Unoona kuti chinonge chirimo, but umbilical cord yakushanda to exchange what? The gases as well as the waste products. Nge painochinja the waste products exchange waste products, ipapo diffusion ndo process inenge ichita take place. And then also number 3, diffusion helps living organisms to carry out gaseous exchange or gas exchange. For example, pani respiration. So pepe munhu paanofema pepe, kuti oxygen ipinde mubody make, it is the use of diffusion. And it uyezve kuti carbon dioxide ibude mubody make, issue yechi diffusion inoita take place. Then let's look at this. Let's look at this table yedu iri kutishowa places anoitika what? Diffusion. And it are we together? Then we would want to see yekutanga small intestines, and muma small intestines edu, the molecules moving is the digested food products ndizvo sange glucose, amino acids, fatty acids and glycerol. And these digested food products are kumove from where? The lumen of the small intestines achibva aenda mu blood or lymph in the villi found. Tutese. Saka that movement iyoyo into the blood, it's a diffusion movement. And it then we also have the leaf redu rine oxygen yedu inobva mesophyll cells ichinonanga muma mitochondria kuti panoitika respiration. Then trim leaf, we also have what? Carbon dioxide. It moves from the air spaces in the mesophyll cells ichienda kumachi machloroplasts. Are we together? Move up paiti photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide yo inobva inoshandiswa nema mesophyll cells move up paiti nema chloroplasts ibva inoita chi inonzi chi photosynthesis pogadzirwa chi food. Then muleaf also we have water yedu ichabvawo nge ichafamba via the stomatal pores to the outside of the stomata. No process yatetichiti transpiration, whereby the plant inenge ichibudisa chi water. And then also muma lungs mune oxygen yedu ino exchangewa, oxygen yedu inobva mune maalveoli edu ichinonopinda ma blood capillaries. As well kuma lungs we have carbon dioxide yedu inobva from what? From the blood capillaries ichinonopinda mu alveoli. Painopinda mu alveoli ndo paunozoita breathe out, and then after waita breathe out inobva yabudisa chi carbon dioxide outside of the body. So ukaona kuti all of these processes ndizvo ari kushandisa issue ye movement of substances, and this movement of substances is being facilitated by what? By a process inonzi or diffusion. Saka which means diffusion is very important kunema living organisms. let's go to these notes. Now, diffusion inoitika, yes, that's very true. But kuti iyo diffusion inzi yaitika, there is something that is called the Brownian motion. Kana takamboita kinetic theory ndizvo, the kinetic theory yedu inostate kuti maparticles anonge ane energy to move, and as temperature increases they increase what, their movement energy or kinetic energy. And saka Brownian motion manje inozoexplaina kuti every particle that you see in matter, it is always what, moving. And it saka pepe paunoona iwo une kana kuti lese kuti pane wakagara padesk rako harina chari kumuvha, rakangogadzikana totese, kana kuti foni yako iyo yawakabata, foni yako iyoyo maparticles arimo pafoni akagadzira foni iyoyo as matter ndizvo, those particles are what, are in random what, motion, zvinenge zvichimuvha. But the movement pamwe dzimwe dzenguva iyo pamwe unonga usazoiona particularly because it will be a micro movement, pamwe ye vibration. Handiti since vanhu zvinhu zvakawanda zvinovibrata nechichi, tinopedzisira taakuona ngechinhu chiri still or chakamira. Why? Because chine chichitange like chiri on one position. And so under this Brownian motion, all particles move randomly at all times. It's known as the Brownian motion, and that energy for diffusion comes from kinetic energy of this random movement of molecules and ions. Then let's look at the factors that influence diffusion, or factors that affect the process of diffusion. And it so yekutanga yedu factor yatinayo, it's surface area to volume ratio, or in general terms tongoti surface area. And so the bigger a cell structure is, the smaller the surface area to volume ratio is, slowing down the rate at which substances can move across its surface. And it so let's have an example. Let's say that this cell is big like this, and we have this cell being rovaraita tuma cells tudiki, and rovaraita tuma cells tudiki. Are we together? Now I want to compare the surface area. You know, the surface area is surrounding the what? The big cell. But inoi ichati this one yakafanana nekune this one riri bigger one here, plus yemukati ichabva yazoita se yazowanikwa surface area panapa, surface area panapa, surface area panapa, surface area panapa. Is that okay? Saka we have additional surface what? Area. That additional surface area rinobva raita kuti anenge ane small surface area, anenge ari ma small particles anoita what? Greater what? Surface area. Then anenge ari bigger particles anenge anechi smaller surface what? Area. Are we together? Saka kukura kwema cells or kukura kwema structures kunoita kuti surface area itoita se itoita shoma. Then many cells which are adapted for diffusion have increased surface area in some way, e.g. root cells in plants which absorb water and minerals, and the cell lining in the ileum of animals which absorb the products of digestion. Saka these ones ukatomaona, or if when we look into them uchazviona kuti their structure inenge yakatosiyana, their structure has to increase what? Surface area, and it because there is absorption that's taking place. Then we look at the root cell. The root cell ukaritarisa root cell redu rakadai iri, ukaritarisa you find out that we have a part which is in the soil, and this part here, say it's in the root. And so now isusu we want to absorb something that is within the what? The soil. We have this extension, a root what? A root hair. This extension rinonzi root hair iro riri richaita kuti water iabsorb izvo. Saka uona kuti kwese ukuku is a surface iyi kuita sei iri kuprovidwa this root hair. Handiti? So at the end of the day, the root hair rakaita kafinger like projection aka kanokonzera kuti riabsorbe what? Riabsorbe water yedu zvakanaka by increasing its surface area or increasing the surface area of the cell. And then tobva tatarisa the other one, it's an intestinal epithelial cell in animals. So this cell neredu rine zvinhu zvarinazvo rikanzi rine highly folded what? Projections. It's highly what? Folded. Are we together? Saka tikatomatwasanura iwawo anotobudisa chiline chakaita sei chakareba. Rather dai rari kunzi rakangodai so, it means kuti taingobva panapa kusvika panapa tobva tatochidhudhunura kudai so. Are we together? Let's say for example tari draw rakadai. Apa pamusoro apapa ndo paive pamusoro pedu apa, and as you can see distance yekubva apa pakusvika apa is idiki. Handiti? But kana chakaita sei chakapetwa like this, and tikazochibubunura kudai so, we find out the surface area inenge yakaita sei yakakura. So that's how the surface area gets what? To be big. And the more closer look is of this one, where we have my highly folded surface on the small intestines. That would increase what? The surface area. And saka ukatotasa small intestine rako iri ndiro zvei, this is your small intestine rako iri, zviri kunzi waritarisa mukati maro mune mafinger like projections. These are the projections anenge achinzi mavilli triteseri. So these finger like projections edu akanzi villus edu. You also see that they include my blood what? Capillaries. My blood capillaries are akawanda. And so my numerous blood capillaries anobva awedzera or ano increase surface area for what? For absorption. And then after that, we have looked at basically what happens in diffusion. And now we want to look at the factors that affect the rate or the speed of diffusion. So 3 factors affect the rate of diffusion and therefore the movement of the substances through the membranes. So yekutanga yatotarisa is distance. So the smaller the distance the molecules have to travel, the faster the transport. This is why blood capillaries and alveoli have walls which are 1 cell thick to ensure the rate of diffusion across them is as fast as possible. Saka tiri kuti chii kana tichidai so? Tikureva kuti isusu the distance ichafambwa nemolecule. Handiti kam, let's say for example iyi molecule yedu iri apa membrane yedu iri 1 cell thick, and iri 1 cell thick like this, and we have 1 cell titete. For a substance to move kubva apa chinonopinda uku ndiro zve distance yachinofamba across the membrane idiki. And unlike let's say kuti we had something chakaita like a wall like titete, chakaita nge like a wall like this, right? Chakaita a wall like this, and then isusu we want to move a substance yedu across the substance, and paino move across apapa ichinonodai so, handiti ichaita a distance yatikuti distance, and the distance yachona inenge yakaita sei yakakura, unlike panapa the distance is what? Small. And so the distance painongokura kudai so it makes it harder for the molecule kuti ita sei it travel what faster as it what gets in, and it then to end up pane the second factor, which is temperature. So the higher the temperature, the faster the molecules, and so this results in more collisions against the cell membrane, and therefore the faster the rate of the movement. Saka tiri kuti isusu kana pane temperature iri higher, ma molecules achaita sei, achamove fast. Then move faster anoita more collisions on the what, on the cell membrane, and therefore panobva paita sei, ma molecules edu anokwanisa kuita pass through what, the membrane iyoyo better. Then let's look at the last one, which is the third one, that's concentration gradient. And it can, so the greater the difference in concentration on either side of the membrane, the faster the movement across it will occur. This is because on because on the side with the higher concentration, more random collisions against the membrane will occur. And it, now we want to really understand what they mean when they mean the difference in concentrations. So let's say, for example, we have side A and side what, B, and it tomboti side B redu rine concentration of 40, then side A redu rine concentration of what, of 2. Are we together? So the difference between them is what, about 38, and it saka, which means molecules will move from where, from kubva kune 4 to achienda kune 2, and it, that's down the concentration gradient, down the concentration gradient from a higher concentration to a lower concentration. So now let's say tovatati, the concentration now becomes what, 200, and it then uku koramba kunachi 200. So now the difference between 200 and 2 yati kure, and it yakura ya about 100 and what, 198. Saka now ma molecules edu anenge akumova achienda uku kundizvo zveni, achamova avachi fast. Are we together? Why ava faster? Because now pane more random what, collisions against the cell membrane. Paita more collisions against the cell membrane, it makes the cell membrane more what, more permeable. Then rinobva raita sei, then rinobva ratopindwa nezvine zvifanira kuita sei, crosser across. So that was it on what, on the diffusion of what, particles. And it can, then the next thing that we'll look at is osmosis. Now osmosis will be a type of what, diffusion, whereby we are just mainly concentrating on the aspect here, diffusion being the diffusion of water molecules. So that will be in the next lesson. So that for this lesson it was only about diffusion. And to round up everything, trukuti diffusion is the movement of molecules from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration down a concentration gradient. And it zvaenda down a concentration gradient, we have to know that the greater the differences in concentration, the faster the diffusion will occur, and also the lesser the distance inofana kucrosswa nema molecules, the faster the diffusion. Are we together? And also the increase ye temperature, the more the temperature, the more the frequency yema collisions, because temperature inowedzera kinetic energy. Saka ma collisions achaitwa ema molecules on the cell membrane achawanda. Paanowanda, it causes the cell membrane kuti rive more permeable, and then the rate the flow or the passing of what, substances across that membrane or diffusion ichabva yava faster.